Everyone. I chose this week to focus on Abigail Adams. The American founding fathers are consistently and heavily emphasized when talking about the American Revolution and the founding of America. Um, but, and I think we all can agree on this, much less attention is paid to their female compatriots. Um, Without the actions of a number of revolutionary women, America would not be who it is today. This is perhaps no truer than in regard to Abigail Adams. She has justifiably been placed in a unique group, the founding mothers of America. I split this video into three separate parts. The first part having to do with just basic biographical details. The second part surrounds her political impact. And then the third part discusses specifically her belief system. Um, so starting off with part one, basic biographical details. She was born on November 22nd, 1744, to a very well-known family. They were the Quincy family in Massachusetts. Um, I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe Quincy, Massachusetts is actually named because of her family. Um, but her family, they had a lot of religious figures, a lot of prominent religious figures in her family's history, um, including her father, who was a minister himself. Um, um, an aspect that kind of shows you the circles that that her family was surrounded in. Her cousin was also married to the famous John Hancock, who I actually focused on with our last video discussion. But you could definitely see that the types of groups or the types of people that her family was mingling with. Um, she lacked a formal education, and this wasn't rare of the time. She definitely got caught up in some of the gender inequalities of the day. Um, However, she was taught to read and write um, by family members. And she also had a rare access to a assortment of books via her family's libraries. So while she wasn't necessarily formally educated, she had a lot of opportunities that were provided to her that a lot of other people did not have access to. However, she definitely took advantage of that, and she informally was taught a lot of things. You could say self-taught, including a variety of topics, politics, literature, things along that nature. Um, but as the book Abigail Adams by Woody Holton writes, she definitely had to take it on her own to accomplish her educational goals. She was married, as we will talk in a minute. She was married to the second president of the United States, John Adams, and had five children who survived childbirth. She had one child who died in childbirth. The first one, Abigail. Then we had John Quincy, Susanna, Charles, and Thomas. She also had many grandchildren who she helped raise. So family was definitely very important to her. The second part is her political impact. Um, Being married to the president, you would imagine she had an impact. All first ladies have a giant impact given their access to the president. However, I would say that describing her in such a way is a disservice to who she was. She wasn't just the wife of the president; she was also John Adams' closest political confidant. They discuss all sorts of political activities. So she definitely played a little bit more of a role than as we would think of as a traditional wife or a traditional first lady. Um, However, I'll, her opinion was valued by John Adams, very much so. Um, but to show just her wide range, she also did play the traditional wife role. Um, and it's easily seen in regards to her time in France and her time in London, or even her time in the United States. where she was hosting grand dinners or she was mingling with certain crowds to help out her husband's career, her husband's diplomatic career. Um, but she also was more than just a wife to a president. She also was a mother to a future president, John Quincy Adams, the sixth president. Um, and as one could imagine, she clearly had an impact, or she was highly influential on her son and her son's future political ideologies. So definitely a big impact when you have access, that type of access to the president uh, via your husband, or you are able to essentially raise a future president. Your impact, your political impact is going to be large. The third part of this video discussion uh, concentrates on her belief system, and I kind of focus on a couple of different elements that kind of illustrate who she was or what her political beliefs were. The first one is in regards to women's rights. She definitely was. She was caught up in the context of her day. So as we look back at her belief system regarding women's rights, we have to bring that into the context. Um, so she was progressive, however, for her time. The biggest example probably was her support of women's rights. I'm sorry, her support of women's property rights. She thought women definitely should have way more of a say in that type of thing. Um, but she did believe in the woman's traditional role within the household, running the household, things like that. Um, her belief system in regards to race relations is also of note, and is very similar to her ideas on women's rights. She was progressive for the time period. However, based upon how we look at it, she would definitely be considered racist. I mean, that's just the reality. Um, However, she was not looked at as that for her time period. Um, her family had slaves growing up. Abigail didn't believe in necessarily the equality necessarily of Black people, but she definitely believed more in their ultimate potential or abilities. Um, However, later on, she became pretty anti-slavery. And specifically, she points out the irony or the hypocrisy of the colonial Americans fighting for their liberty while at the same time preventing others from having that same liberty. So I thought that was very insightful of her, given the time period, to be able to make such a connection. Um, and that is directly quoted. I'm sorry, that is paraphrased from Abigail Adams, A Writing Life by Edith B. Gels. The last area of belief system with Abigail Adams is concentrates on her ideas on religion, and I think the best quote that kind of shows how she looked at things was from her letter to her daughter in 1818 when she says, quote, "When will mankind be convinced that true religion is from the heart, between man and his creator, and not the imposition of man or creeds and tests?" I thought that really shed light on her ideas on religion, or her ideas on religion as a Christian woman. Um, in conclusion, overall, I think it's obvious Abigail Adams had an oversized impact on the creation of the United States in its founding decades. Originally coming from a prestigious background, she was able to help rise her family's prestige level to newfound heights. Um, and she was a very, very influential person, being the wife of the second U.S. president and the mother of the sixth U.S. president. She could truly be called one of the founding mothers of the United States. Thank you.